Hello and welcome to Terrain Time. I'm Fabricator General here with on Spectre Studios, and today I want to talk about the basics, the very basics of putting together an HDF building. A lot of the buildings that you've seen in some of the other videos, or will be seeing in the videos, all have very similar common concepts and steps to do. So today we're going to go over those more closely and take a look at those. So we'll use MicroArts Volsung Shantytown as our example. So you can open up the plastic, pull out the instructions and set them aside. And then looking at the sheets, you've got the basics of the sheets is that there is the cut side, so that's got all the decorative side that'll catch your eye first, and a back side which is much more plain and the lines are much more subtle. We'll be doing most of our work from the back side here for the simple reason that on the cut side you've got all the decorations, every last little decoration, the wood grain, the bolts, the little hatch pull, the door ring on the trap door, all that stuff is on the cut side. It's very pretty and you want it to stay very pretty. You don't want to accidentally have the knife slip and scar that up. Working on it from the back side, you protect the decorations from your work, and if you make any divots or little gouges in the back side, it's not going to show like they would on the front side, where people are going to be looking at your awesome terrain that you're going to be building with your own two hands. Also, from the back side, all those distracting decorations are hidden. So every line you see on the backside, you know is a line that goes all the way through, and it's a line that you want to work with. So you don't have to worry about digging and gouging in wood grain or in some decorative line, wondering why the part isn't coming apart, because in fact it's not meant to come apart there. Further, back on the front side, all of MicroArts stuff has essentially a page number. So you can see that in the lower from the top, the lower left-hand corner. We'll get that in the camera better. So this is page 1 for the Shantytown. And then there is page 2 of the Shantytown, each of your parts. Some of the, like the apartment buildings, have either 4 or 5. I don't really remember how many sheets there are, but it's an impressive number. So you can end up with a lot of complex stuff. Some of the other things that are going on is you'll find like the decorations for the little ventilation systems for the Shantytown are all engraved there. Also here on the Shantytown, you've got pieces. Let's see, we'll rotate this around. Pieces here. There's a little one there, and 2 and 4. How can we get this to work? 2 and 4 there. So with the Shantytown, there's 5 little shacks on these 2 pages. So you're going to want to keep track of which ones you want. All the ones, you know, all the parts labeled 2 to go together with the 2s, all the 3s to go together with the 3s, so forth. You have the instructions to help you out with that, and some of the other stuff that will be going on. You can see like these pieces here hold on the roof, and that's labeled a 5, 5, 4, 4, so that you'll be able to keep track of all that stuff. So another thing that you want to do is, usually when you open up the package, first thing, a lot of these holes that are already empty, some of those that has the waste pieces that are there that are no longer part of the model, part of the terrain piece, some of those will be falling out automatically. They'll just be falling out by themselves. So I like to take the plastic off, and then before I even start inventorying the sheets or going through this different stuff, you just start cleaning up all the debris that falls out automatically, and you put them off into your bits box. So as you move along, you're going to start accumulating these random pieces. Some of them are fairly large that you can use for other projects. Small shapes that can be used in basing or doing other decorative things. Since you've invested so much in making this project, in buying these pieces, you should keep all the little extra scraps that come with it, so that you can use those later on for other stuff and save yourself some money there, so that the money you would have paid for that basing material can go toward more troops, more buildings, more dates with your significant other, more good special food for yourself, whatever you might like, other treats to enjoy yourself, to enjoy life. So what I do in that case is I take my bits box, take my sheet, and again from the back side, because I can see which things are good and which things need to be knocked out, and take and start knocking some of this debris out. And one of the hallmarks of a debris piece that you want to take out is that it doesn't have any connectors that are holding it in, so you can just tap it out gently with your X-Acto knife. So that's what we're doing. These are windows that go into little shanty shacks, and you can just tap the little windows out. And I just put it right over the bits bucket. That way it goes straight in, saves me some time. I don't have to clean up afterwards. If you've got some that are being a little bit more obstinate, like these ones here, just leave those. We will cut them out later. You can check out other little holes. See, there's one there. And just pop these out, because they're going to be coming out eventually during the course of building the buildings anyway. But if you're working on something and a piece of debris falls out while you're moving a sheet around, that's going to kind of interrupt your flow. It might also get under a piece and start to pop or rip that piece out from the pressure accidentally, which is going to do a little damage to your piece and cause you more frustration and aggravation. So we'll just continue to. You can go through the whole kit this way, and it's actually kind of fun. It's a little like popping bubble wrap. Nothing is as good as popping bubble wrap, but knocking out the debris pieces is a close second. So after you've got all the debris cleaned off of your, all pulled out and cleaned off of your sheets, you can start looking at what it is that you want to build. So we'll build, say, why don't we build Shack 5? And that should give us all of the different principles that we're looking for good basics. So going through here, we want to, we're going to pick out our Shack 5. We'll reference the sheet that came with the kit as we do it. We'll flip it over to the back side. Take your knife, and you should, as you look at it, looking down on the work side, you can see here on the cut side, all the lines connect. They're all cut through. On the back side, as mentioned in the instructions, there are little connectors that are holding this into the frame. Little connectors that you can see where the lines on the back of the model, the back of the building, don't connect. Those connectors are holding it in. You can go through, hopefully you can see here. A little closer. The joys and blessings of auto zoom. There. See there? This line comes along here, comes along there. I'm not sure if you can see right at the black where the lines don't touch. But we're going to take the knife and just draw it. You can either set it directly into the groove, or if you're having difficulty getting it into the groove, you can set the point of the blade down, somewhere near the line, and draw it sideways across, and you feel it click and drop into the groove when you get close. Then you can just pull the knife down along the groove. You get close to the connector point, press in and rock it back and forth, and the knife will break the connector. Push it in, pop, and then carefully bring the knife back up out. down in. Sometimes you hear it pop, sometimes you don't. Pop that in. And there we go. And some of them let go easier than others. You pick it up. If you think that you've gotten all the connectors, pick it up a little bit, put your hand underneath, push gently, and you see that it's not really moving. That means that I haven't gotten all the connectors yet. Although this window wants to come out, so it turns out the window was a piece of debris that I didn't notice. I thought that it was a part of the wall, an optional part of the wall that could have stayed in. But since it wants to come out, I can just set that aside. Or if I decide that I don't want a window on that wall of the shanty, I can just set it back in, a little white glue, and it'll be there, and it'll just look like there's a wall there. And since these are little shacks, if it looks like there's some random board stuck in the middle of the wall, that's perfectly in character. Let's see if we can find those other connectors. I think there's one here. Come on now. Carefully work the knife back out. Again, some of the other key important things is, as you work along with this, brand new to you, it's probably going to be frustrating at one point or another. So if you start to get a little bit exasperated, just slow down, take a breath, step away, come back to it. You've spent a lot of time saving up, a lot of time investing money into this product. Getting mad at it and accidentally breaking things and losing that investment isn't worth it. Just take the time every here and there to walk away, get a breath, a little walk, maybe a drink, and then come back to it when you're ready to come back to it. It'll be waiting for you. So as we're working on this, let's see if it's ready to go now. Still not quite there. One of the things about working on these is that the instructions will make reference occasionally to a particular frame or a particular part, and rather than cutting all of the pieces out of the frames right away and having a big pile of loose pieces, I find that it's better keeping things straight to leave things in the frame. There we go. It's better to leave things in the frame until we need them. So we've got one wall of the shanty. We'll set that aside. Flip over to the cut side. This piece is a 5. This piece is a 5. And then this is our last 5 over here. So let's keep going with that. Again, we'll find a connector here. And connector down here. One up here. One right there. One of the other things that you'll notice as you go through this is that as pieces come out of the board, they start to cut and come out easier and easier. So what you're doing is you're releasing tension from the board, and the smaller pieces will move out of the way of the knife easier. Of course, sometimes that also means that the smaller pieces on the parts you want to keep are starting to get twisted more and more. Like you can see here, these pieces of the frame, these narrow slots, are starting to get twisted. And I try to move the part, and they may rip and tear. Now, ripping and tearing of the part that I don't care about is fine. It's a little more challenging to try and pull out the pieces afterwards. But ripping and tearing of the parts I want to keep, obviously, is bad news. So it ends up being an issue of taking care with everything that you're doing all along the process and working through as you go. Also, when you dig into a project like in the apartment building or the walkways or the shanty town, As you first start to get into it, it's going to take you a while to figure out where things are on the sheets, what pieces are meant to be, and what's going on with them. As you get in, you'll find that you start to get more familiar with stuff, you start to build momentum, things go quicker and quicker, and better as you move along. So confidence builds quickly, and you'll be able to move more quickly through what you want to do. Let's see, it looks like we've got this edge done. That one didn't want to let go. Sometimes you don't get all the way through the connector on the first go. There's nothing wrong with that, and that is a common event. So as you work through it, keep in mind that all those things are perfectly common and normal. There we go. There it is. So 3 walls to the shanty down, and here's the last one. Find the connector again, and start to move through. And it could be that you have, if you've picked up multiple, say, shanty towns or walkways, or you participated in the Volsung Kickstarter, and you have a lot of HDF terrain now, you'll find that they vary from package to package. Like, one package might be very clear and obvious on the back sides of the sheets, and it's easy to work through, and other ones it looks like the laser was much more sensitive or gentle, and just doesn't look as clear, like a photocopy that isn't very dark. There'll be natural variation, and some of them will be easier to work with than others. Let's see. That's being very persnickety right now. Through. And once we get this wall out, we'll be able to start putting stuff together. So, it's also the case that this HDF is essentially wood. So you're working with wood, and you get some wood dust. You can get a distinct wood smoke smell from these packages. That is from the laser cutting through the material. And the material is thin sheets of paper with glue in between each layer, and they are compressed with a lot of pressure. So that's where you get the high density fiber of HDF. You work through that, so you'll have those qualities. Let's see. There we go. And there. So now we have our 4 sides of the shanty. And you can see there's another window there. This is either a door or a patch. That can be a door. Here's a window here. Here's a window here. We can just knock them all out. Some of them come out just as easy as debris. Some of them, just like the walls themselves, have connectors. So if you want to use it as a door, you need to flip it over and find the connector. And then over here is another one. And there's another one there. Now, I'm not hearing any clicking. I'm not hearing the knife go through, but it's still making its impact. You want to be careful as you go, because down at the bottom down at the bottom there is a very thin piece. So if I get too rough trying to take this door out, you can end up snapping the bottom of the wall off and affecting the look of my part. There we go, it should be coming out now. There we are. So now I have a rough hole in my wall. So that might be where somebody kicked a hole in the wall, because this is an old shack. It might be a rough door where somebody didn't bother to take the time to make a proper door casing and anything like that, because it's just a shack. And I also now have this little bonus piece of wood. It can be a rough plank, it might be driftwood, shipwreck wreckage, it could be any number of things. So we'll set that aside and have that for decoration and use later also. Like, you might set up your shanty town, and with all the little rough pieces of wood that you have left over, you might have a little lumber pile out back that somebody could take cover behind or spring an ambush from. Anything is possible as you work through it. So now that we've got a door, we've got a couple of windows. We'll pop that window out too. Let's start looking at putting these together. So you can see these little holes here, these slots here. So one goes from the floor up, the other goes from the roof down. You just slide them together, and as you go to slide them together, you want to take the time to see that you've got the outside facing out. It seems obvious, it seems silly to say, but it's all too easy to start putting stuff together and then a couple of steps later find out that you've got the backside facing out and the details on the inside, and you have to go backwards. These don't necessarily need glue, and you can certainly take them back apart again most of the time, but because they're held together with tension, a lot of the time that happens. So if that does happen to you, you can snap the little arms right off, put it back into place, pull out your PVA, your white glue, get a little dot of it, get some right on your finger, and then put a little glue on there and set things to right. Fortunately, this being a low-class shack, if anybody comments about the break in the wall, it's a low-class shack, and of course there are breaks in the wall. So that's all set. One of the things that you may notice is here, let's see, there, you can just about make out the 5, showing that this is part of building 5. As you go to put these together, lay it in, the way this is made, that mark disappears right into the joint. So your finished piece, I knocked the broken piece off, your finished piece won't have little mystery numbers. You're not going to have any little NASCAR designations on your shacks. You know, shack for number 17, number 5. Those won't show up. So then you put your last piece in. So we'll have a wall here, and now you can see that as I'm pushing this in, the walls are moving at different rates. It was skidding and sliding at different rates. With these thin parts, as we've already seen, with uneven pressure, those can break. So you want to work evenly back and forth across the model, trying to keep it as straight down as you can. Also, set the building down on the table and push down from above, and that gives you more stable support and allows you to go with straighter pressure down into the building. So now that those four sides are all set on there, this is actually now, I mean, we were working with it before and it seemed like it was kind of flexible, kind of flimsy, it could break easily. Now it's good and solid. So there we are. For the next thing, as you work through, look at the instructions. The instructions will lead you through. So we just did this step here, and now here it's talking about putting in a door casing and work through. We're going to skip the door casing for just a moment. We'll go to hunting down, because they will show something like this in the instructions. You know, find these mystery looking pieces and set them together into the roof. So as you go down looking through, and you have to look through here, it turns out that there are the roof joists that they're talking about, labeled with a 5. We'll cut those out. And again, it's an issue of flipping it over to the cut side, select the piece that the instructions are showing you, flip it over to the back side to actually cut it out. And then very gently, carefully test and pull it out. So in keeping with the fact that we are cutting through wood with a sharp knife, we need to have occasionally a change of the knife blade. So, and we'll just take a moment and I will find out where the gremlins have moved my spare blades to, and we'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got my little block of spare blades. If you've never really worked with taking the blades apart, changing out the blades in your knife, feel free to go check out the Tools of the Trade video, where I talk more about that, and you can check out the instructions on the package of your individual knife and get that all set up. Sharp knife is safer than a dull knife. A dull knife can skip or do strange things that are unexpected, where a sharp knife always does what you expect it to do, namely cut. So let's get these last connectors out. There we go. And one more. That one there? I think so. There we go. So there's one. And that's the fundamental basics is knowing when to stop, knowing when to recognize that maybe you're tired, maybe you're hungry, maybe you're distracted by other things that are going on in the house at the time, and step away from your work before things go horribly wrong. And here we go. Get that in there. I know that I like to I'll start working on something in the evening, and before I know it, the wee hours of the morning, and I need to be someplace in the morning, or maybe it's the weekend and I don't need to be someplace in the morning, which means that I want to stay up until sunrise and keep working on everything. But it's important to know when you've gotten overtired, when it's time to back off, when it's time to consider what you're doing next before things go too far and too badly wrong. Okay, so now looking at the roof, the roofs don't have numbers on them. In this case, you need to consider the shape, the characteristics of the bar that you're using. So in this case, that would be, see, here, you can lay these down. This is obviously, there's a long part of the roof and a short part of that same roof. And these pegs don't line up with that roof. So this is not the one that I want. These pegs here do line up. So this is the roof for building 5. And it's that sort of, I don't know if you want to call it detective work, but it's observation, it's consideration of what you're working with, and just basically matching up the shapes. It's a lot of what you're doing. Most of what you need to know for putting this stuff together, you probably learned from Sesame Street long ago. Matching up the shapes, following instructions, looking at pictures and trying to work stuff out. Lots of skills from long ago. Let's see if this is ready. Not quite, but it seems to be open to persuasion. So here's another basic. Rules are meant to be broken. So while you want to go through and very carefully cut all the connectors that are holding this in, and then press it out when they're broken and they're ready to let go, sometimes a little gentle leverage also helps, and you end up breaking the tabs by force, pressing them like that. So let's see here. We'll go this way. First, we want to get the other half of the roof out. So again, looking at the roof sheet, it's observation, it's just checking stuff out. This isn't specific to this case. It's just a case of observing what you're doing and being very careful as you go. So we will take the connectors out for this other part of the roof. In this case, the natural variation here, now that I'm working on these roof parts, where I said that you go through and you clean up all the debris that you can easily see before you start working. This particular package happened to have very light laser lines. So there are several pieces of debris, like these little holes here where the roof supports are going to go, aren't very obvious from the other side. I only notice them now that I'm working with it, and I know that a hole must go there, so I can see those lines better. There are some lines on the back side of the sheets that seem to be stray laser lines, or maybe they're relief cuts that allow the piece to flex and move under the heat of the laser, that don't necessarily become obvious until you're working on what you need. So you very carefully line up the part, and then again, gentle but firm pressure, getting the piece all the way into place. And again here, gentle firm pressure, and push that in. So you can hear it creak and squeak as the pieces are being pushed together. That's because this is so well machined, cut so precisely, that there's almost no room in between the parts as they go together. That is what's holding it together without glue. But in the cases, like say with some staircases or other interchangeable parts, maybe you want to take some roof pieces off, change out doors, change out windows. That tension and squeaking is your enemy, because as you go to pull things back apart, you're going to be pulling the building apart and things are likely to break. What you can do in that case to loosen stuff up and make it easier is you just take your knife and just scratch the top layer off. In the case of these struts here, on the edges of parts, you've got that deep brown. As you scratch away, you can see the color change from the deep brown to the lighter tan. That shows that you're actually making this slightly smaller. And you can go from the side. When you go from the side, when you go from the flat down, you're cutting through whole sheets of paper. So you want to be way more gentle here, because you can take off bigger chunks much more quickly. This will make your peg much smaller, much faster. So you want to take a lot of care if you decide to go that route. One of the observations that I made when we were looking at this previously was that I first wanted to put this piece on the roof because it was the bigger piece, and your eye gets drawn to the bigger parts first. And occasionally you snap things right off, but it looks like I escaped with minimal damage. But what I noticed when I was looking at this roof bar is that this shorter piece was going to end up going underneath the larger roof part, which is why we stopped, got this part out, and put it on first. So let's get that set back in. There we go. And now, gently, we'll work on trying to put. Now our challenge is that we've got these 4 studs and 4 holes. You have to put 4 studs, 4 pegs into 4 holes, all at the same time. The pieces don't necessarily line up, and sometimes they can be much more difficult about going in. And you've got some very small pieces that, if things don't get lined up, or if the pressure isn't quite right, you'll snap them off and make a lot of damage. Here we have our roof, got our building, and now we can just take a look at how it all goes together. And it goes together not like that, because I was not paying attention when I put these 2 pieces together and put in. Hey, I've just made it more authentically shack-like. So there, what I was saying about paying attention and things becoming more difficult and breaking if you're not paying attention. Now you can see that in action. Alright, so let's look at this again. We've got a side wall, got a long wall, has a tall edge, a bottom edge. Back to Sesame Street. Do these shapes go together? Yes, now they're the right height. Back over to this side. These are the right height. But because I broke stuff, they won't go together until I put these pieces on. Now, slide that. Whoops. There. So let this be your cautionary tale. Fortunately, in this case, we've got plenty of white glue. We've got plenty of these little shacks, and this isn't meant to be a high-rise apartment. So the fact that I've beaten it up and made it look really rough and kind of beat up works for me in this case. But as you can see, that very easily doesn't always go that way. So this is eminently gluable. We've got the roof. The roof comes off, so you can put figs inside. The roof goes back on. We've got some convertibility. We've got 3 windows here. A lot more can be done with it, but I think that we've seen the basics of HDF construction, some of the basic perils. Of course, everything that went wrong, you know, of course, I meant to do that. I meant to do that. It was all instructional. And you can let me know down in the comments any other things that I did completely wrong for your entertainment and instruction, and understand, and I'll reply as quickly as I can with my explanation of how that was done completely on purpose. We'll work from there. So come and check out the forums on Spectre Studios, all one word, .us. We're in the forum section. There is a terrain time section there. Come in as a guest. You can sign up with the forum, and we can discuss more about HDF construction if you like, or anything else that's going on with terrain building or gaming. And come in and let us know what you think, and have fun in the community. Thanks a lot, and happy gaming.